Hi there. Yeah, I'm a
Hiya.
hi. I'm a city councillor in Bangor, so I do apologise for joining in on the Anglesey session. I couldn't make the Gwynedd sessions, unfortunately.
That's fine, no problem
Fine.
at all. Really appreciate that you've joined. I have, because I knew there would be a little bit of crossover, I've included some information about Gwynedd and Morn in this. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you.
Yep.
We're also happy to set up any follow-up meetings as well, if you want to talk about Bangor specifically. So I'll get started because I'm aware that clock's ticking. If anyone wants to jump in with a question, comment, or anything as I'm speaking, if you just raise your hand or just jump in. Nia, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, but I won't be able to see you. So I'm just gonna start my presentation. And like I said, any questions at all, feel free to jump in. So, for those of you who don't know, Smart Towns Wales is a Welsh government funded programme that operates across Wales that Menton Moore have been delivering for the past 2 years. Um, Agenda even. So we've done our introductions. We will go through what is a smart town. We will look at the landscape in Anglesey, the technology that's in place, how it's being used. We'll also just have a quick look through other technologies and opportunities, and then what the next steps will be. So looking at action plan, funding, and resources. So, like I said, I'm on the Smart Towns Wales project, which is a Pan Wales project. Nia, who I think most of you know, is leading on the Smart Gwynedd Morn side of things, which is the project that this Wi-Fi project falls under. Um, so what is a smart town, first of all? So basically, a smart town is an urban area that uses different types of electronic methods and sensors to collect data. Insights gained from that data then used to manage assets, resources, and services efficiently. In return, that data is used to improve the operations and future prosperity across the town. So it's all about using technology and data to make things run a bit smoothly and to measure the effect of any interventions. And in terms of Wales' smart towns, so the wider project comes under the Transforming Towns agenda, so part of regeneration. So it's all about how we can regenerate high streets by using this technology and the data-driven decisions. So over the past 2 years, we've engaged with over 130 towns. We've facilitated about 30 now digital place plans. Close to 70 towns now have attended our workshops. And as part of this as well, we've created an Anglesey Smart Island strategy. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the Smart Towns project. And one great thing as well that's come out of this project is more smart towns that are kind of popping up and becoming more confident in sharing their journey. So some of you might have heard of Cardigan and all the great stuff going on there. What we're finding now is that more towns are starting to replicate this success. So really exciting stuff. So how to become a smart town? So we usually start out with the community engagement workshop and an action plan. This is a little bit fluid, so I've put it in a circle. It's not like a step-by-step thing. So as you probably know, we've been installing the infrastructure and collecting the data in some of these places for a while now. So it's about kind of getting back in touch. We know that our engagement hasn't been as kind of intense as it could have been. You know, we've had things like COVID and other issues that have stopped that. So now I think we're in a really good situation to make the most of the infrastructure that's in place, you know, to start looking at other options for adding, you know, apps, whatever sensors people be interested in. And really starting to make the most of that data, you know, sharing data, working on our digital and data literacy skills, and turning this data into decisions. So normally what we do is we look at a challenge. So it's not about just saying, all right, we want to stick this technology in this town for the sake of it. It's about looking and saying, well, this is a challenge or an opportunity, and this is something we could do to help it, maybe using technology or just using technology to monitor the situation. So things that we've heard in pretty much every workshop we've done issues like not enough trains, buses, parking, empty shops, off-putting buildings, the attitude there's nothing to do in the town, young people moving away. And all of these things lead to low footfall, which then leads to more of these problems, and you're kind of trapped in a cycle. So what can we do about this? Obviously, sticking Wi-Fi or a sensor in a town doesn't solve anything. We don't have a simple solution, unfortunately, but we can use the data to have solid evidence of these issues. So if you have a concern, for example, about really bad pollution on a certain street, well, if you stick a sensor there, you can then take that data to the decision makers and you can say, what can we do about this? Can we maybe redirect a bus route? Can we do something? So it's about having the power to kind of to prove a point, really, sometimes, to just prove that there's an issue. And then, of course, you can use data and things like that to support applications for grants. If you prove that there's a need for something, if you prove that something has worked in the past, then you can justify more investment. And it's important to know it's why talking about technology now that isn't cutting edge. It's stuff that all the big retailers have been doing for decades. Some of it, places like Tesco's track you on your phone all the way around the shop. They know how long you spend on each aisle. We're not talking about anything as invasive as that. We're just trying to give the smaller shops a little bit of a leg up, really, to be able to have kind of similar data, to learn about the types of visitors that are on the high street, the prospective customers, and to work together, to do things like have a town-wide marketing strategy. Sounds cheesy, but to be part of the change and not get left behind. So what does this look like in Anglesey? So on this map, you can see Gwynedd and Anglesey smart towns. So the ones in yellow are the ones that have already been installed. So Wi-Fi and LoRaWAN gateways, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So in Anglesey, we've got systems set up in Beaumaris, Bridge, Rhosneigr, and also in Traethbychan and Porthamloch. And we have installation that will be going ahead in Amlwch, Benllech, and Holyhead. Also including a Gwynedd slide here. So we've got Wi-Fi in all of these places. I know Bangor has been a long time coming. There've been a few challenges. And Nia is working really hard at the moment trying to get the final wayleave agreements from businesses to install the hardware so that the Wi-Fi can be installed as soon as possible. I think we're looking at, before the end of the summer. So these projects have been funded by Anglesey County Council mostly. Some of them have been funded by Flag and Leader. And the project's been delivered by Mensa Morn and a local company called Coda Garden. So you can see from these maps, the way the networks work is you have a network anchor point. You then have access points and the Wi-Fi signal kind of bounces one off the other to give coverage to the entire street. And on posters and oh, I can see that someone has raised a hand.
Hi, yeah, it's Christine here. I was just seeing your list there and I was wondering, I didn't see Llangefni's town on that list.
That's true. Llangefni should be on that list. I think it is. It's on the map.
Yeah.
That's just my mistake there.
Oh,
Sorry,
fine,
Christine.
okay. It's all right.
Yeah, we're not taking it down or anything.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Thanks. So yeah, we have maps in place so people are aware where the coverage is. And because we're doing data analysis as well, we let people know that that is taking place, so people are just aware and they can find the map and the data easily, so they know exactly what's going on. Now, the Wi-Fi was only ever supposed to work on the actual street, not in the shops themselves. This was for a number of reasons, but we knew that people would have concerns. They wouldn't want people sitting using the free Wi-Fi in their cafe all day, things like that. But the businesses have been really instrumental in making this go ahead, hosting it at their own cost, to make sure that the town has that service. So we're really grateful to that. One thing that does happen when circumstances change, sometimes a business will switch the access point off, or sometimes even unplug it to do the hoovering, and that then throws the whole system. So you might see dramatic drops in the data sometimes because something like this has happened. So that's just something we want to try and get that message out. If there is an issue, to please let us know before switching the box off. The systems have been installed, and the idea is, obviously they're paid for by the council or whichever funding streams that are in place in that town. The idea is that it's a project that is then adopted by the community for their own benefit, so that they have a landing page which is owned and maintained by the community, like you can see on this Beddgelert example here. So you can have a link to any kind of information you want on there, whether that's a Chamber of Trade, social media, or anything. And you also have the option to opt in to a town newsletter. So obviously this is a service that is available to the towns completely free, but it does mean getting a group together and taking advantage of that opportunity, really. This is just an example of Beddgelert to show you, what's possible. So when people log on to the Wi-Fi in Beddgelert, as they inevitably do because there's no phone signal there, they can find all this information, what to do, where to stay, eat and drink, and even, about hazards and weather on Snowdon. So there's loads of opportunities to share any information that you want people in that area to know, which could be useful to any kind of community. And email marketing, I think, is one of the main benefits that the community should all be taking advantage of. So the way the system works, when people log into the Wi-Fi, they give their consent or don't to be contacted for marketing purposes. So the communities then, once they get set up, which is completely free, and we offer training in this as well, they get set up, they can then send out marketing campaigns completely securely in a GDPR compliant way. So they don't actually see the email addresses. They can just say, oh, I want to send an email out to anyone from this postcode area in this age group, or anyone who has visited the town on holiday. So you can send out different messaging to different audiences. Really useful, I think, in rural communities to let people know what's going on. What we hear a lot of is that there are events and things, people don't hear about them until they've already happened. So this would be a really good opportunity to to get that community communication going. And then you can measure the effect of these kinds of campaigns by looking at the footfall that we collect about the towns. So the way that this whole Wi-Fi location analytics works, when you go to a town, you switch your Wi-Fi on, you'll see the name of the town. So it'll be name of town, free Wi-Fi and BIM. And you'll put your email address in, agree, as we said, to tick the boxes. And you also have the option to answer 5 questions about why you're visiting the town, where you're from, and a couple of other things about you. So we collect that data from people who log into the Wi-Fi. We're also collecting background anonymous data from any mobile devices that are switched on and are Wi-Fi enabled. So they don't need to be connected to the Wi-Fi. They just need to have Wi-Fi switched on and be in the area. We know that this system isn't perfect. The data doesn't give a perfect representation, but it does allow us to see trends or a pattern. And the way this works, so when you go home and your phone automatically connects to the Wi-Fi, your phone is always looking for those networks. And when it does, it's sending out a little signal, which is its MAC address. So what the access points do is they count these MAC addresses as people. So the MAC address is completely anonymized through a process called hashing and salting. And then it is just put into a bracket. So in the graph, whether it's counted as a person and it's counted as it's been there for 5 to 10 minutes, or it's been there for 2 hours. And then the data itself is actually deleted every day. So all we have a record of is there was a phone in this area for X amount of time. So completely GDPR compliant. And then this data is all displayed completely free, open access on a website called Patrum. So there's data from about 30 places across the 2 counties now, and I think we'll have a few more counties joining us soon as well. You can see this data in a simple graph format, or you can download it into Excel and do your own kind of analysis on that. So you can combine different data sets, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. And there are video tutorials available, and we're also happy to set up individual sessions if you'd like more training on this, to be able to use the data more efficiently. So when you first log on to Patrum, you'll actually see a screen that will have 3 pieces of information from each town that's on Patrum. You can then clear the screen and just pick what information you want. So you can decide to compare things across different towns, or you can just see things from your town. I'd really recommend having a little play around because it's really interesting, the kinds of things you can see. And like I said, there's also a video tutorial available on YouTube. So the information is on Patrum. We have the footfall and the dwell time, the demographic data, and we also have environmental sensor data, which I'll talk a little bit more about. So I keep mentioning footfall and dwell time and the way that they're put into brackets, and this is how that appears on the graph. So we'll see in most places people are visiting the town for 5 to 10 minutes, 10 to 30 minutes mostly. And what we really want to see is people spending more time in the town. So these green, yellow, orange, red and pink brackets growing. The 8-hour plus, we tend to see that might be the devices that are in the area, things like CCTV, not necessarily people that are there for 8 hours. But like I said, we see trends more than, completely accurate. One person is here kind of data. And you can download these as pictures or into spreadsheets. And the reason we're doing this, so traditionally policymakers, people who were looking at kind of transforming towns agendas, they would look at empty buildings, empty retail premises. And this approach now, people tend to look more at footfall as a way to classify the towns, what kind of activity, what kind of patterns. So that's why this is important. And I think that's why it's seeing kind of countrywide investment as well. And this is an example of, how the data compares across places. So, very different kinds of places that we've got on Patrum in Anglesey at the moment. So Llangefni, you may know, is having some issues at the moment. So the data isn't actually showing because someone has switched an access point off or something's gone wrong with one of the points. But you can see here from historic data, we have a really clear pattern in Llangefni. You can probably guess that the quiet day there is Sunday, like clockwork every week. So we can see from that data the way the town is used, that people are working, shopping in the week, and that the weekend, the Sunday, the footfall plummets. So it'd be interesting then to say, oh, well, if we have an event on that Sunday, how does that compare in the footfall? Similar with Porthaethwy, it has, very regular footfall patterns really, as opposed to somewhere like Crossnaged, which is more dependent on holidays, bank holidays, and good weather. So we see Traeth Bychan is kind of solidly busy on a Saturday, the same as Porth Amlwch, I guess, these kind of beach areas. So interesting to see, what kinds of things influence the footfall. I've also included this screenshot from the Cisco Meraki dashboard. So as part of the Smart Towns Wales programme, the Welsh Government. Christine?
I was just going back to your Llangefni list, and I was just wondering, when did that get unplugged so that maybe we could, because there was a date in mind that I wanted to just work out how much the footfall was for a certain day.
Okay, I'm not sure the exact date that it went down. Nia, do you have any information on this?
Yeah, I'd have to check. Can I get back to you, Christine?
Iawn, diolch.
Yeah, I'll email you.
Diolch fawr.
Yep.
So I know our boss was fuming because he wanted to check Gwyl Cefni.
That's where I was going from. That I'm a committee member for Gwyl Cefni, and I was
Okay.
just going to ask what the footfall for that it was. Out of
Yeah,
interest.
because I know last year we had data from Gwyl Cefni, which
You did, because I think somebody
you
was
did.
on there with this kind of idea.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's a way of
Okay.
kind of getting the data,
Do
but we'll
we
definitely
know who
have
it is that's unplugged? Are they plugged back now? Is that, if that's the nice terminology?
So that's Nia's department. I
Okay.
know there was talk about moving an access point.
Yeah, there was. I'll check with Paul
Okay, thanks.
who it was, and then yeah, I'll get back
Diolch.
to you.
Yeah. So I'll move on. So like I was saying, in Menai Bridge, we have the Cisco Meraki system that was given by Welsh Government to every county in Wales. And this just gives a little bit extra data. So because it works in a slightly different way to the systems that we have, it's a much more expensive kit, to be honest. It also shows visit frequency. So it remembers it gives the MAC address a different identifier, so it doesn't keep the MAC address, but it remembers if that device has been there before. So it can tell you if that person visits every day, if they visit for the first time, or if they visit occasionally. So you can kind of see behavior change then. You know, if the loyalty is going up, then it means that, you know, something is going well. People are coming back and back to the town. So this information was really interesting when the bridge closed, and we were looking closely at the data. And what we saw was a kind of a change in the type of visitor. So obviously the footfall went down, but what we saw a lot of was that the passers-by and the first-time visitors were the ones that completely dropped off. And people that were visiting tended to be visiting more often. So people from the town were spending more time on their high street as opposed to going away. People from away weren't coming in. So things that you kind of get that hunch about anyway, but you see it in the data then, and it backs that up. And with the programme, I think it's important to note they're not all techie interventions. So a big part of it is how can we improve the towns, you know, through any means possible, and then measuring that with footfall and dwell time. So it can be used for, you know, different events, as we've said. How does improving general appearance, signage, you know, adding green spaces, things like that, how does that help? There's the quality of the air. So if we pedestrianised somewhere, or if we, you know, had more active travel, does that help? So all kinds of different interventions really, and how we measure them. And then with the demographic data, as I said, it's not representative data. It only accounts for people who log into the Wi-Fi and answer the questions. But it does give an idea. So if I were to open a shop, you know, I'd be interested to know the general profile, you know, why people visit, who they are, you know, in terms of age and things like that. So it's good that that information is openly available. And we do have businesses who call up wanting to find out more about things like this, you know, for their business plans. One of the interesting points is finding out where people have come from. So I apologise, this information is from Gwynedd, but it's interesting the kind of trends that it shows. So Beddgelert just last month had people from every county in England and Wales, which I think is really impressive. Also, the quality of their data is better because, as I said, they don't have good mobile signal, so people do log into the Wi-Fi and depend on that a bit more. But what would you learn from that? Well, Beddgelert could say, okay, we're doing really well here, but would it be worth targeting a marketing campaign to these 2 counties in Scotland that don't seem to have visited, and then seeing if the data changes from that? Aberdyfi could also look at that and go, oh, well, you know, what can we learn from Beddgelert's marketing campaign? Are they sending follow-up emails to the people who've logged into the Wi-Fi, and is that why they're getting repeat visitors? You know, things like that. The patterns are also interesting. So with Aberdaron, we can see that people from Conwy are also visiting more frequently than people you know, from Mid Wales and from further afield. But the situation is a bit different in Aberdyfi. They're getting more people from the Midlands, which we know anecdotally to be true, but it is interesting to see reflected in the data as well. Demographic information. So the preferred language, I think, is something that's quite powerful and that we can be used, you know, to get certain messages across, because we find, so just a little interactive thing here. Can you guess which town is Llangefni and which one is Beaumaris based on their choice of language?
I'd say Llangefni was the one on the right.
Yeah, exactly. So lots more Welsh speakers in Llangefni. And you see, you know, it's a big portion of Welsh speakers. So then you can then say, well, do all the businesses offer their services through the medium of Welsh? And, you know, there's clear evidence here that that is what the customers want, or at least the people who are visiting the town want. So it just gives you a little bit of a backing to start certain conversations. We're quite surprised when we were showing the slide in Gwynedd that places, you know, people assumed that Pwllheli is quite touristy, but it was almost half of the people would prefer Welsh as their language. So, you know, I know for a fact that lots of the businesses in Pwllheli aren't using Welsh, so it's something that just maybe give a little boost like that. And then just to give you an idea, the purpose of visit for different towns, you know, you can guess pretty easily which is which here. So outdoor activity as the main purpose of the visit, would that be Aberdaron, Llanberis or Pwllheli?
Llanberis?
Yeah. Shopping?
Pwllheli.
Yeah. And obviously then Aberdaron, holiday. So like I said, it's not representative data, but you can see that it does give a good snapshot of that town, which is interesting to see. And then the third type of data, which is completely different, is the sensor data. So we are installing LoRaWAN gateways and environmental sensors in all the towns that we're working with, but the data isn't actually on Pattern yet. The data is being collected, so we will be able to access it, but at the moment we just have Llanberis up as an example. So we have air temperature, humidity and particulate matter. Now they're not, you know, like weather station accuracy, but they do show what the temperature and the humidity is, and then also particulate. So that is the kind of particles, which could be pollutants, could be pollen, but the general quality of the air. And then we can see different trends from that. So we find obviously the air temperature goes down, the particulate matter goes up because people are lighting their log burners or they're traveling more by car. And using this kind of data can allow you to try and change behavior a little bit. So people are far more likely to listen to an active travel campaign, someone that says, you know, try and walk your kids to school instead of using the car because this is how bad the air quality is at 8:30 and at 3:30. Whereas if you just say to them, you know, well, you should walk your kids to school, it doesn't have quite that same effect as using that data. And then especially if you can then show an improvement in that data with that change of behaviour, that can be quite powerful. And oh, I love this example from bonfire night. You can see the peaks in the particulates in the air, way above average around bonfire night. That's what it looks like on the dashboard. So you add it from the map and then you add the bits of information that you want. So Patrum is a work in progress. So we're expecting another big update next month. So we will be seeing improvements. So it'd be great to get any feedback as well, if you do have a go on there. I've been talking quite a bit about LoRaWAN without explaining what it is. So LoRaWAN is a long range wide area network. So it works kind of like radio waves to transmit small pieces of information over long distances, to connect what we call the Internet of Things. So any kind of sensors, anything that is connected basically. And LoRaWAN has had a lot of investment from the Welsh Government and from councils, because it's a great way of using sensors to drive efficiencies in so many different areas. They're super low power use as well, so they can last for years. And it's a license-free spectrum. So with having the gateways in different towns, anyone can then use those gateways to transmit their information. So I'll talk a bit more about how towns can benefit from that. So this example is a kind of big picture, perfect world smart town where you'd have a dashboard that's telling you everything that's going on in the town from these sensors. So you'd have an overview of your parking, of your public toilets, your bins, to make sure that everything's running smoothly. You'd then use this historic data to make things run better. So all about the kind of description that I used at the start. Now, this is just an example of a dashboard. It's called the Tego dashboard. And there are loads of different ones available. You can get them custom built, and you can have them just, simple ones that will send an alert to you if something needs checking. So loads of different options there. Patrum is an example as well of a dashboard, in a really simple way. So the use cases, like I was saying, improving air quality, a lot more efficient when a campaign is backed with data, when you can compare different data sets. And a really interesting use case as well is things like takeaways. So it can sometimes be difficult to get change of use for a takeaway business because of concerns over smells and air quality. So you could actually put this as part of your planning and say, well, I'm going to install air quality sensors so that I make sure that, I'm not causing a nuisance in that way. The other use case is monitoring footfall. So I know I bang on all the time about footfall. It's not just about the town. So you can actually measure the footfall in your individual business, either to compare that to the high street or for whatever health and safety restrictions that you've got in place. So obviously with things like COVID, but some sites do just have capacity that they need to stick to. So something like this can be a lot cheaper, more efficient, especially if you have a limited number of entrance and exit points. Then you can count quite efficiently like this. And the data is obviously completely anonymous because it's a beam breaker. So instead of counting people by their phones, you're counting them just by them physically breaking a beam. The pros and cons are two systems. So the beam breaker overcounts, if you walk past it 10 times, then you're 10 people, whereas the phone's not a perfect system either, it tends to undercount people. Sorry, I did this presentation twice yesterday, so I'm starting to lose my voice. In terms of business, councils and large organisations, IoT or Internet of Things is so useful for minimizing those routine tasks. So anything that you've got to check on, that you've got to monitor. So things like public toilets, instead of sending someone to check the public toilets every hour on the hour, you could have a simple door sensor that tells you, oh, 10 people have been in now, so you could go and check it. Or do you know what, no one's been in today, so you don't need to go and check it. Same with bins, you know, you can have that data that says, okay, it needs checking, but you can also find patterns then from the historic data and start to predict to run your services more efficiently. Pest control as well is another great use case. So you can actually have these sensors on mouse traps now. So instead of having to go around all the different sites, you just have a ping and say, oh, you know, that one needs checking. Fridge and freezer monitoring is something we've been working with businesses on, because it's we hear a lot kind of, you know, businesses don't have much time or resources to kind of invest in technology like this, but it's about investing in things that will save money and save time in the long run. So if you've got, you know, 20, 30 fridges or freezers, as some restaurants will, and someone has got to go around manually recording that temperature every day, you're talking about, you know, hours of labor saved every week. And we know that everyone is short staffed, so that's something that can really practically help people work smarter, not harder. I've just seen that there's a question in the chat, but I think
That's just
Nia.
being cheeky. I was just passing the information on to Christine.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Nia. Like I said, door sensing is something really simple case that can, you know, it can be serious. It can save lives if you have them on defib cabinets, if you have them on life buoys, you know that something's been tampered with or someone needs help, that can send that alert straight away. Also really useful on gates, parks, farms, so used a lot in farming, which, you know, really big in this area, obviously, and we've done a lot of work in that field as well, excuse the pun. But also used for reducing antisocial behaviour. So people have been using them like noise sensors as well. So if the noise goes over a certain level at a certain time when it wouldn't be expected to, they can send out someone to check what's going on. Really useful as well to show the usage of paths and parks. So we had one town who had a large number of parks for quite a small population, and they were wondering how these parks were being used. So was it worth carrying on maintaining all of these parks if they weren't being used, or would it be better to have, you know, a higher standard in a smaller number of them? So it just helps you make informed decisions and be able to justify your reasons as well. Big important use case is improving energy efficiency. As we know, everyone is trying to do across, you know, businesses and public sector. So things like smart building technology, meters on, you know, sensors on your radiators that will just automatically turn them off when you reach a certain temperature, lights that turn themselves off if there's no movement. So things that we're all quite aware of, but on a big scale can make massive differences. Monitoring space, so lots of us are hot desking and, you know, might have an office space for 40, but there might only ever be 10 people in at once because of hybrid working. So things like that you can monitor by using sensors as well. And one that we hear a lot about is parking, because almost every workshop we have with towns, they just say, oh, you know, if we could have free parking, then everything would be so much better. The shops would be busy, the streets would be busy. It's the parking that's causing all the problems. And we don't know if this is true, you know, possibly by offering free parking, we might see a rise in footfall. We might just see people parking for free and not spending any money, but we'll only know by looking at the data. And there's different ways of doing this. So you can monitor whole parking bays by the beam breaker sensors that I was talking about earlier, or by smart cameras with AI, which will actually identify how long a vehicle has been there, if they're parking illegally, etc. Christine?
Yeah, you have free parking with the council over Christmas, so I wonder if that's something that has been monitored.
I don't think it's something we've looked into, but that's a really good point. That's exactly the kind of thing, you you know, that we should be
They give
looking
you
at.
two or a month. I don't remember. Don't they allow you to park in certain public parking for about a month over Christmas?
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something that we could look at and see what effect that's having.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for that. Um, so the different types. So yeah, you have the camera versions, but you can also have these little sensors that you just put on each space. So they can be really useful in areas where you have, you know, problem areas with parking. If you have an area that someone shouldn't be parking, and you can put one of these, and then it'll alert, you know, someone to come and check why there's someone parked there. You can also have them for disabled bays. So if you have this is going a little bit more high tech, you can actually have a pass so that the people that are allowed to park there can park there without sending an alert. But if someone without the pass parks there, then it sends an alert and an enforcement officer could come out. So it's a way for councils, obviously, to improve enforcement as well, which maybe not great for all of us if we don't want to get parking tickets, but it's, you know, it's a way of running things efficiently, and also having the data from the car parks to change. Yep, Christine?
That might work near Llyn, places like that where
Yeah,
they're
yeah, exactly.
parking illegally and getting towed away.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good shout. Yeah, especially somewhere where it's dangerous, you know, where emergency services need access and you need that space to be free. And of course, you'd have that historic data then of actually, well, how often is that happening? You know, if we've had an alert every day, then, you know, we need to think of something, you know, another kind of deterrent, because that's obviously not working. You can also use the historic data to adapt pricing according to demand. So if you see, for example, the car park's always empty on Mondays, but the shops are open, well, why not offer free parking on the Mondays and see if the shops benefit? So there's loads of different things you can play around with once you've got the data. And, you know, loads of problems probably that you can try and solve. So I'll just give a few examples of case studies from, I think most of them are Gwynedd on here. So digital screens are something that lots of towns have been talking about. You can have, you know, simple adverts, or you can have really high-tech hubs which have phone chargers, sensors, Wi-Fi, all kinds of things on them. And they can be interactive as well to help with wayfinding. So we're trialing these at the moment in places where there are tourist attractions, and there's the perception that the towns aren't benefiting from those tourist attractions as much as they should be. So Zip World up at Llechwedd in Blaen y Ffestiniog, they have had a turn left campaign for the past year, and they had a engagement officer who was going around the businesses and asking for flyers to put on her notice board up at Llechwedd. Now, obviously, this was quite time consuming. So this pilot with a digital A-frame now allows businesses to send their adverts as many times as they want. So if they've got a special offer, if they've got a special event on, and the social enterprise in Blaena will upload it in real time to the screen. So all the people who are queuing to go on Bounce Below or to go on the different attractions up there will see what is available in the town. So there's also, you know, nice pictures of the scenery, things to catch their eye. And Zipworld are also sharing footfall with us. So we can analyse that and compare it with the high street footfall and see if actually this campaign is making a difference. Kerry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just interested to know whether there was a charge for those businesses for that advertising.
No. So we're doing that for free for the businesses.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that this is something that Zipworld will take up in all of their locations as well, because I know it's a concern from a lot of communities. And it's just, you know, if they can give something back, that's great. So we've bought these screens through the project. One's going to be going to Llanberis. Yeah, Christine?
Yeah, as I live partly in Blaenau Ffestiniog as well,
Ah,
and
okay.
I've my stepdaughter actually works in Zipwil, so I have seen these campaign turn left, and I know that she talks about it. And I was going to ask the same question if they are charged, because when you do get into Blaenau Ffestiniog and turn into Llechwedd, you don't realise what's on the other side of that turning. Wait,
No,
you know, there's
exactly.
and they're missing a trick because there's a lot of other stuff going on there as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. We've had to kind of push it with the businesses to get the content from them. But I think they're starting to see now. I mean, do you know the burritos?
Yeah,
Because they're not open all the time, but they have
no.
their advert on it when they're open. And they've said people have come down, they've said, oh yeah, we saw your advert up at Zip World. So
Ah, good.
it's great to hear that that is working.
Not that you want to take the catering away from Zip, but it's always busy and it's quite expensive. But there are other things there in Blaenau that you could,
Exactly.
you know, the like cafes that are there that could benefit from that. But you
Yeah.
tend to, I've done it myself years ago, going into Blaenau and to Llechwedd and not going further into the town
Yeah.
because it is actually on the edge.
That's it, and that's one of the things. So we go and do these workshops, and people just kind of air all of their, you know, their concerns really, and you know the things that they're not happy about. And one of the things that comes up all the time is, you know, oh, we don't see any of that, the money that is spent up there. So this was something that we just thought, oh, we'll try this.
It's a good
And I
idea.
think it shows that they're trying to help as well, which I think goes a long way. Kind of starts that conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so really good pilot, really happy with this. And hopefully, yeah, hoping that they will then invest in screens, keep the campaign going, but we can move the screen somewhere else for them to try it. Because it's cool, you know, to be able to just update it in real time. It's brilliant. And then I've kind of touched on this before, the way of comparing footfall from your business with the street. And this is something that we can do with having a separate access point called a mini Meraki in the premises. And we've trialed this with a couple of places, but we do have a spare one at the moment. So if anyone would be interested in trialing that, so to compare your business with the high street and see, you know, if there's an opportunity there for something you're missing out on, how well you're, you know, changing your window display, what effect that has, what new signage has. And this is quite an interesting example here from an anonymous business showing the footfall versus income in January. So the town and building footfall is quite decent. So if they're getting 50% sometimes of the town's footfall, then that's brilliant, you know. And then the income tends to kind of correspond to that. So you look at that and you say that's quite good. But come August, the town footfall shoots right up, and that isn't reflected in the building footfall or in their sales. Now, this might be something that they don't really realize without looking at that data, taking a step back and comparing. But you know, you'd look at that and think, well, is it a local based business and the locals are away, but the tourists aren't spending in the shop? So what could you do then to maybe appeal to the people who are on the street? Is there something that you could offer to draw them in? And then obviously that's not what it shows in this graph, but if you are seeing that people are coming into the shop, but they're not spending on that pattern, then that's something again that you kind of take a bit of a hard look at what you're offering and what you could be doing better. So it can be difficult to have those conversations and to maybe spot those opportunities without looking at the data. And we actually have a free spreadsheet template on the website, so you don't necessarily need the footfall of your shop, you know, to be measured in a fancy way. If you have, you know, your own way of doing it, or even if you just compare the town's footfall with your sales to see what the correlation is there. can be interesting. And Walking Tour app is another technology that we're trialing to replace walking tour leaflets. So it's a way of celebrating the town's history and heritage, but also saving money on printing costs and on your carbon footprint. And then it's interesting to see how you can direct footfall to different areas of the town then, including businesses. So doing like a little treasure trail, you know, you could have clues that lead you to different businesses to encourage people to kind of browse. And then again, you can assess the impact of that by using the footfall data. Hello Lamppost is a Anglesey Athletic project that was piloted for the first time in Wales. And it's an interactive platform that uses like an AI chatbot to talk to people. So if they're sitting on a bench or waiting for a coffee or at a bus stop, and they see the sign, then they can text it and it'll text them back. It'll ask them what they're doing in part, you know, what they like about the town, what they don't like, what they'd like to see more of. And reaching people who wouldn't typically engage with a kind of council questionnaire, you know. The findings were pretty standard, you know, things like we want the mini golf to be opened, we want more things for young people. But again, you have that data then to present to people. Whether they do anything with the data, you know, is another thing, but you have the proof of, you know, what people want. It's a good way of kind of community consultation. And then from a bit further afield, we've seen digital platforms, two of these created by Welsh developers as well. So one of them that's been rolled out in Trail and in Prestatyn now kind of replaces the need for a town app by using QR codes. So they have QR codes all over the town and you scan them, you can find out what's going on in the town, you have a directory of all the businesses. So rather than Googling it and just getting the top result that is the one that's paid more, you see actually what the local businesses have put up. Everyone has the same opportunity to advertise their business, to put special offers up, and any local information. And what's great about it is it's actually really affordable. I don't have shares in it or anything, but they're offering a free trial of a year to any town in Wales. They just need to pay the setup costs, which are £250 to £500. So really good opportunity there for a town that doesn't have, you know, an online presence to take advantage of that. So it was set up by the bid in Rhyl, but in Prestatyn, it was just a small business group got together and said, oh, we want this as well. So shows that the businesses are seeing the value of it. There are also, you know, a number of different apps. So I'm just giving two examples here of ones that are being created and used in Wales as a kind of digital high street. So again, gives you that opportunity to bypass social media and kind of paid ads. And it's also a way of getting more data as well. So people using the app, you're getting more data about how they're interacting with the town. Visitor as a platform is amazing because it also allows you to aggregate data on the app. So while the customer will just see, oh, there's these shops and these businesses and these special offers, the businesses can also find the town's footfall and things through the app. And any other data that's been collected. So if they have parking data, and then the local authority gets a kind of overview of all that as well. So you'd have different levels of access there. And this case study from Wrexham, so it's not actually from Wrexham, but it is the maths of Wrexham Smart Towns officer who's worked out based on how much a bin lorry costs to run, which I have no idea, annual cost of about £63,000 just for one bin lorry. And if these lorries are driving around checking bins, which according to some research, 80% of the time don't need emptying, they could be saving, you know, thousands of pounds and loads of emissions and loads of manpower that could be better spent elsewhere by using bin sensors. So that's just to give you an idea of like the scale that we're talking about when we talk about smart towns and efficiencies. So some key takeaways. I think it's really important to note that we're talking about investing in future efficiencies, minimizing routine tasks to free up the workforce. So we're not talking about, using AI and machines to replace people. We know people are short-staffed, resources are limited. So it's about making those savings and making things better all round. It's also not about going, putting this technology in to monitor this, tracking people. It's about using data and technology to empower the communities to be able to make the arguments that they need to make to prove their needs, to prove, to apply for grants, to justify investment and things like that, and to support their goals, which is why it's really important to us that it is community driven, that we work with the communities to find out what the use that they want to make of the technology is. So yeah, endless opportunities. What are the next steps? So I think we're kind of there with a lot of this. We have groups that we work with in lots of towns, and it's important. It's not just techie people. In fact, you don't want just techie people. You want people who who are on different groups, who have the local knowledge, who have the communication skills, the open-mindedness really, and the positive attitude to try and help the town. Another important opportunity, I think I've spoken to Lana about this as well, is having some kind of work experience tie in with this. So for young people to be able to get experience of working in a team or working on a project, to help people use data and digital, which would be really invaluable experience for them as well, and will help people who are not so tech-minded in the process. In terms of resources, we have published a Smart Towns delivery manual that has loads of information, a step-by-step guide, really, if you like. Really encourage you to use Patron as a resource. Like I said, it's not perfect, but we are working on it constantly, and that there is some really valuable information on there. We as a team as well are here to support you. So Nia specifically with Gwynedd Morn, me with Smart Towns generally. We're looking at providing a programme of training in January, which will be mostly focused at businesses, to help with kind of data literacy and things like that. So if there's any kind of skills gaps that you see we could be addressing, any feedback would be great there as well. And the funding is obviously the big question that we hear a lot of. So the Smart Towns Wales comes into Transforming Towns, and there is money allocated in that. So there's up to 250,000 capital funding for digital towns interventions. So things like sensors, Wi-Fi. There is an argument to be made as well for apps that go with digital screens and things. So there's money available, but as part of Transforming Towns, sorry, I'll just say, so most we know this anyway, but there's a finance locator on Business Wales as well for you to find out what finance is available for certain projects. But in the Transforming Towns framework, the guidance does state that projects need to be part of an overarching plan. They say that the plan should be bottom-up, community-driven, and needs to involve key partners such as BIDs, town and community councils, and local third sector organisations, amongst other groups. And that's something that we have been doing. We want to continue to do, work on these plans, get the community involved, and any other organisations in the community as well. So for the towns listed here, so Llangefni is one of the towns that already has a digital action plan. Like I said, we've also produced with a consultancy a smart island plan, which is not just technology, it's all the things that link together. So would really recommend having a read of that if you haven't already. And there's also work by Ynys Môn Council. They have a strategic plan for improving town centres, and creating smart towns is part of this plan. So measuring footfall, visitor profiles, and things like that. So there's support there, there's plans there. I think where we just need to join the dots now. I think there's probably more than enough planning. It's about actually doing the actions now. So yeah, I've covered that really. Monitor and evaluate the interventions using data. Yeah, there's, I guess what we would like is to go into these communities, get a plan in place if there isn't one already, and focus on short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. So your short-term, probably things like, you know, using Patron, filling in any skills gaps that might be necessary. Mid-term could be more, you know, infrastructure-based, extra things that you want to apply for funding and get. And long-term goals could be things like, you know, oh, we want to pedestrianize this street, but to get there, these are steps we're going to have to take. We're going to monitor the air quality, etc., etc. And yeah, my voice is absolutely going, so really relieved to be on my resources slide. So we have loads of different resources on the website. We share things on our socials as well, and we're happy to answer or to try and answer anything we can, or if not, you know, to point you in the direction of somebody that can. So I will stop sharing now. I stop sharing. Okay, yeah, I will stop sharing now. And yeah, hopefully if anyone's got any questions.
I've got any questions, just comments. Oh, so excited about all this stuff that we can get from the technology, particularly
Thanks, Ellen.
in Holyhead, where we as MLTF are buying a lot of empty buildings
Yeah.
to repurpose them and put new businesses in them. This is just going to be a game changer. In, you know, we've got the current situation, and we can show the impact that they make into increase the footfall, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
To benefit empty buildings being reused, but also the existing businesses in the town, then the impact that is going to have on their businesses as well.
Yeah.
See, traffic wardens up in arms, they'll be out of business with these sensors, won't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, so excited. It's just, it's the positive side of Big Brother being here in reality.
Exactly. You know, the technology is here. It's not going away. We just need to make sure that we're benefiting as well, that, you know, the little guys are benefiting, don't we?
Yeah, really, really excited.
Brilliant. Well, it'd be great maybe to set something up and talk about your plans with Holyhead.
Yeah, I was just saying now, we've had one, or had more than one in the past, business groups, you know, it's just died a death, but we need to resurrect it. That's one thing that's coming out from this, because they need to be aware of what's coming. They need to see the benefits for them as businesses. They need to advertise on the setup page, really. But
yeah,
also
definitely.
they need to stump up the cash when the pilot's finished. Because if they see the value in it, they'll see the value of actually investing in it for the long term.
Yeah. Is there a digital platform or anything in Holyhead? Do they have a website or an app or anything?
Not really. I think we're going to have to drive this ourselves, you know, because we've got competent people working for us. But again, to sustain stuff long term, the businesses will benefit the most from stuff like this, and they've got to have to step up. I know it's difficult times; the economy is not at its best, but they will benefit the most if more people come and spend either actually physically through their door or online, whatever. So they've got to see the benefits of it, and I'm sure they would once they see that data coming through on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it might be worth looking at something like QR box to get the businesses on board, just because sometimes having, you know, the data's great, but when they have something tangible that they can see, oh, this is going to benefit me directly, it's easier to kind of get people around the table.
Yes, I was saying to Catherine now, you know, as Mon said, we put QR codes on the bus shelters, so people take the bus, Are you looking for a job? Do you need help? Scan this.
Oh, cool.
And then that went straight through to an inquiry form on our website, but we could measure that. You know, we could measure how many inquiries are coming through that QR code.
Oh,
So,
brilliant.
so valuable is in that information.
Yeah,
It's colour the
definitely.
way you look at marketing generally, but also how you engage with the community.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, really positive. Thank you.
Just thinking maybe we could have a little catch up, Alan, next week at some point, just to kind of, I can update you where we're at with Holyhead and things, and then we can, yeah, get talking.
Definitely, because we've just had 2 days of like Dragon's Den. We've appointed tenants for these buildings that are currently empty that
Oh,
bring a
cool.
lot of life into the town. So I would assume they'll be at the forefront of wanting to use this technology, because with new business coming to the town, they'll be keen on it to make the
Yeah.
most of
Yeah,
this.
brilliant. It's a shame it's not already in to have a baseline to compare the before and the after, but I guess it'll take a while, won't it, for the businesses to set up? What kind of time frame are you looking at?
Within 2 years, we'll have
Ah, okay.
6 new businesses.
Cool.
The Beam one is an interesting one. I just had a conversation earlier. There's a footfall Beam, which links. Well, there's a bridge which links the railway station in Holyhead with the main high street, and they've been collecting that data for a number of years. And
Okay.
2-3 years ago, we had the data, and we showed that Monday there was nobody in the town, and it'd gone from being an okay day to nobody. And then we realised what it was. We'd moved the market stall 50 yards around the corner, and his van was blocking the Beam every Monday.
Oh no.
So we figured out what that was.
Oh, that's so
So that was
funny.
really interesting to
Yeah.
realise that it wasn't a major problem for Holyhead that nobody came on a Monday. It's just that the van was parked in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But they do have a
We hear so many things like this, with the sensors, so many things that you don't think about until it seems really obvious.
So yeah, we can have a catch up. That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you an email and then we can arrange a date. Diolch.
Well,
Does anyone have any other questions or comments?
No questions really, but just great to see all the information and all the data that's that you've
Thank
got so
you.
far.
Thanks, Kelly. Lon?
Yeah, similar to Kerry, really, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to offer our services as well then. So if anyone has issue with, they're worried about the digital skills of their staff or the businesses, that, they're worried that their staff don't actually have the skills to be able to follow this through, and we are always happy to come in and support on the digital skills
brilliant.
side to get, because some of these organizations are fantastic and ready to go, but some might not have those skills. So yeah, you are always welcome to call on us to come in and support with those basic digital skills that they may need to start off.
Thank you, Lon. That's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
great. Anything else? Otherwise, I guess let you all go and enjoy the sun.
yeah, really informative. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoyed that.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. I'll send the recording out anyway if there's anyone that you want to share it with. Yeah, diolch yn fawr iawn. Look forward to working more with you all.
Yeah,
Helen.
thank you.
Diolch.
Diolch.
Diolch, ta.